You're 7 years old, and they're taking you away. Not for a day, not for a week, forever. Your mother's face is the last soft thing you'll see for years. And she's not crying, because crying would mean she failed. So she stands there, straight, silent, watching them take her son down the road toward something she knows will either make him or erase him. You don't understand yet what the Agoge is. You're about to find out. The first thing Sparta took from you wasn't your comfort. It wasn't your childhood. It was your sense of self. Before the Agoge, you had an identity built around your family, your home, the people who knew your name and said it softly. That identity, all of it, got stripped the moment you walked through those gates. No more mother, no more father at dinner, no more private space to feel small or scared or confused. From this point forward, the group was everything. The unit was your family. The pack was your identity. And if you couldn't fold yourself into that, you were already failing. The older boys watched the new ones arrive, not with sympathy, with assessment. They were looking for the weak ones, the ones who would cry first, the ones whose eyes searched the gate for a parent who wasn't coming back. Because in Sparta, weakness wasn't just personal. It was a problem for everyone around you, and everyone around you knew it. The loneliness in those first weeks wasn't an accident. It was the first lesson. They kept you hungry, deliberately, precisely, not enough to collapse, just enough to make sure survival required effort every single day. You had to steal food to eat properly, from the kitchens, from the older boys, from wherever you could manage it. And the rule wasn't, don't steal. The rule was, don't get caught. If you got caught, you were beaten. Not for taking food, for being sloppy enough to get seen. Think about what that teaches a 7-year-old brain. That the world doesn't reward honesty. It rewards control. It rewards precision under pressure. It rewards the ability to need something badly and still stay calm enough to get it without leaving a trace. You slept on reeds you cut yourself from the river. In winter, on stone floors. Your body adapted because bodies do that. They recalibrate, they toughen. The threshold for what counts as unbearable shifts slowly upward without you noticing. By your second winter, the cold that made you shake in your first week just felt like night. And that shift, that quiet recalibration happening in your nervous system, was exactly what they were building toward. But hardening the body was the simple part. Everything in the Agoge was measured. Everything was ranked. And the ranking was always public. Your performance wasn't private. Your failures weren't private. If you fell behind in training, everyone saw. If you flinched, everyone saw. If you lost a fight, everyone saw and remembered. In a community that small and that closed, reputation was everything. This created a very specific kind of pressure that modern psychology recognizes in elite military and sports environments. The fear of social failure becomes more powerful than the fear of physical pain. You push past what your body wants to quit at, not because you're fearless, but because stopping in front of everyone costs more than continuing. The older boys ran the younger ones through competitions designed to produce a loser. Because Sparta didn't just want winners, it wanted to see what you did when you lost. Did you collapse? Did you make excuses? Did you let it show on your face? Or did you reset, quietly, and come back harder? The ones who reset were the ones who moved up. The ones who collapsed were the ones who got used as the example everyone else learned from. Humiliation was a teaching tool, and after enough cycles of it, shame stopped working on you the way it works on normal people. You'd been through too much of it, in public, in front of everyone, and you survived every time, which meant they had to find something harder to test you with. The beatings at the altar of Artemis weren't random cruelty. Boys were flogged publicly, ritually, and the goal wasn't to endure the pain. The goal was to show nothing, to keep your face still, to let your body go through something genuinely awful while your expression stayed composed, controlled, unmoved. The boys who lasted longest were celebrated, given status, held up as the standard. What that does to a developing mind is precise and permanent. When the highest social reward available to you is the ability to feel nothing visibly, your brain starts rerouting. Emotional expression and emotional experience become two separate systems. The feeling still happens, but it stops showing up on the surface. By the time a Spartan boy was old enough to hold a spear in a real battle, he had been conditioning that split for a decade. Pain came in, fear came in, grief came in, and none of it reached his face. That's not natural toughness. That's not genetics. That's 10 years of deliberate, repeated psychological rewiring. On the battlefield, this made him extraordinary, unreadable to the enemy, stable when men around him were breaking, capable of making clear decisions inside chaos that sent trained soldiers from other city-states running. But the battlefield was never the only place he had to live. Here's what Sparta never put in the curriculum. You can train a person to suppress fear. You can train them to suppress pain. You can train them to suppress grief and loneliness and doubt and every other emotion that makes humans messy and unpredictable and hard to control. But you cannot train those things out of existence. You can only teach them to go underground. The Spartan warrior who stood composed at the funeral of his closest brother, the one who showed nothing, said little, went back to training by morning, didn't feel nothing. He felt everything. He just had no mechanism left to let it out, because every mechanism had been trained away before he was old enough to know he would need it later. The accounts that survive from Sparta describe men who were extraordinary in war and strangely hollow in peace, who didn't know what to do with stillness, who struggled with intimacy because intimacy required a kind of openness the Agoge had specifically and repeatedly punished out of them. They built the perfect soldier, and in doing so, made a very specific kind of peace, the quiet kind, the domestic kind, the kind that happens in the space between battles, nearly impossible to inhabit. Sparta worked. On its own terms, by its own goals, it worked. It produced men who could stand in conditions that destroyed everyone else, who held lines that should have broken, who built a military reputation that lasted centuries and still gets talked about today. But the price wasn't paid in blood. Not mostly. It was paid in everything that got cut out of these men before they were old enough to protect it. The softness, the range, the ability to be known by another person without flinching, the capacity to sit with their own inner life without needing to bury it under discipline and duty and the next thing that needed doing. The shield came back from battle. The boy who used to need his mother, he didn't. In Sparta, that wasn't a loss. It was the goal.